The League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, is demanding the Department of Justice open an investigation into a series of raids in Texas. The raids were carried out last week, targeted Democratic Latino voting activists, volunteers, and political operatives. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says the raids are part of a state election integrity investigation, despite experts finding voter fraud remains rare. A protest was held outside Paxton's office on Monday, with the president of LULAC calling the raids voter intimidation. Joining us now is NBC's Jane Tim and Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez. So, Jane, what exactly happened here?
Yeah, so officers from the Attorney General's office went with early morning raids and very wide-ranging, expansive warrants to go to these activists' homes, searching their homes in many cases in conducting lengthy interviews. One 87-year-old activist told my colleague on the ground, Suzanne Gamboa, that they looked through her underwear drawer, went through her garage, looking for documents, voter banks they said they were looking for. Now, Texas has very strict rules about how people can help others register to vote or cast a ballot in any way. And it's clear they're looking for violations of that. Attorney General Paxton has been looking for voter fraud for a long time, despite, as you say, the fact that this really is not a widespread problem in the United States. He's been very vocal, saying that he believes there is widespread non-citizen voting that will be used to steal the November election. And it's hard to put that aside when he is raiding the homes of Latino activists in Texas who do voter registration efforts within the parameters of those rules. Now, we don't know everything about this investigation. Of course, it is ongoing, but we do know they are targeting for voter harvesting and voter or identity theft crimes that they state in the warrant that we were able to obtain.
Jane Tim, thank you so very much. Senator, it's always great seeing you. I'm just wondering, what do you see happening here?
Jose, this is voter intimidation is what it is. He is intimidating Latinos. I mean, here you have a twice indicted, impeached attorney general on probation of some sort for securities fraud, owes $271,000. It's important to say those things because we have to consider the source. And now what he has done, after historically doing this kind of activity before elections in districts that Republicans are trying to win over, like they are trying to win in House District 80, he goes in and makes up these false accusations. Accusations that he then gets to go on the stump with, accusations that Donald Trump gets to talk about, corruption in elections in Texas and so on. They are creating a narrative in Texas that it becomes their national narrative, whether it's voter harvesting or immigration. This narrative is created by these localized Republicans like Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott and others. And unfortunately, what it does, as I spoke to a county official in Frio County, which is one of my counties, he said, Senator, what it does is it scares Latinos from voting. They then just simply don't want to go to the polls. They don't want to go through the trouble because they don't want to be raided like these abuelitas were raided. They literally came into the homes of 3 80-year-old women and interrogated them. That woman, the 87-year-old woman, Lydia Martinez, was interrogated in her bata, in her bathrobe. She asked them to allow her to change. They did not allow her to change. For 4 hours, they had her in custody. It is a shame and a travesty what Ken Paxton is doing in Texas.
What actions, if any, are you planning to take against these raids, Senator?
Well, LULAC has obviously asked the Justice Department to come into play. Myself and another one of the senators are asking the Lieutenant Governor to create an investigation into Latino voter intimidation in Texas. I don't think that's going to go very far in this Republican-controlled Senate, as you know, Jose. So it's not that we have our hands tied. We will keep fighting, and we will keep trying to tell the truth. And that's basically what we can do.
And Senator, you're speaking about this narrative being created by the governor and others like Paxton. Governor Greg Abbott announced yesterday that the state has removed over 1 million ineligible voters from the voting rolls since 2021. What is that all about?
So they went back and created a piece of legislation to purge voter rolls from people that had registered to vote and simply had not voted. So if you've registered to vote in the past and you didn't vote in the last couple of elections for whatever reason, let's just say you decided to stay home, you now cannot vote into the future and you need to re-register. This is just another way they have made it much harder to vote in Texas. Texas is truly the last stand for these right-wing Republicans, and they have allowed Greg Abbott and Paxton and Patrick to be able to frame the national narrative rather than to solve the problems that are ailing us here in Texas, the real problems about child health care and health care in general, mass shootings that you and I have talked about, like what we experienced in Uvalde. All of the failures in Texas have been under the helm of a 30-year Republican control. And they don't want to let go of that. They don't want to let go of that control, and we're going to keep fighting as best we can.
And Senator, I do want to ask you about Uvalde, that was the scene of that horrible massacre. What can you tell us about the folks there? How are they doing?
Well, it's interesting how these two things that seemingly wouldn't be intertwined. In one of these instances, with one of these people, you had Texas Rangers show up in the last couple of days with AR-15s to their doorstep when their kids were inside sleeping. That was depicted by one of these people. So what those Texas Rangers, couldn't do in Uvalde, they couldn't go out. They certainly were very tough in this instance. To the point of your question, the families, all they want from this government in Texas, let's say, is transparency, accountability, and policy change. And they have received none of those things. All I can do is continue to fight and advocate to try to get some of those things to happen. Here, you just saw last week the retirement of Steve McCraw. He shouldn't be retiring. You shouldn't give him a laurel branch. He should have resigned several years ago.